high level for us to appreciate at least three things: the what, why, and importantly, um, what you can do as an individual, right? That brings me to the how. How can you as an individual, how can your organization or both, play into ensuring data privacy and protection for your customers, your citizens, for the citizens rather, especially for those in public sector, and the general stakeholder. So first thing we have to discuss is this thing we call data and information, right? And technically, if you talk to information science individual or data science, data science or IT individuals, they will tell you there's a difference between data and information, right? Such that in simple terms, data is really information that is in very raw form, right? It is in very raw form. It's not valuable, but information is data that has been processed to become more valuable, so that a person or an entity can be able to actually apply that information and draw value from it. So, but in this case, let's look at data and information as generally just piece or sets um, of what should I call him, of points about a person, because that's what data privacy and protection is about individuals, as we shall see in a bit, right? So I'll keep making references a lot to data, probably more than information, and I'll explain why. I'll talk more about personal data rather than personal information, hopefully as we go, probably the next slide. So data or information, why is it important? We all use data every day. We've used data for generations and generations, right? The world is founded on data. Even God himself is full of data and information, I dare say. Remember, for those who are Christians, the world was made in 7 days. Seven is a data item, right? When you have day one, this and that was made. All those are data items. All those are pieces of information. So data is important, and they're just. I highlighted these four critical areas that I think all of us can very well relate with. Um, um, Through the many experiences we might have either within our workplaces, within the government or in the private sector. And firstly, data is important, whatever form of data that is, to enable you drive your economic activities, right? So data can have monetary value. So in this case, you're looking at data as an asset that can help you make money, can help you drive economic value, whether at the national level, organizational level, individual level. um, Information is power, and you can use that information to be able to have monetary value. Data is used for customer engagement, citizen engagement. As I said, because you're talking about public sector, we are having a public sector focus. We all know that government is the biggest consumer, or rather the biggest holder of data in any country, right? Across all the many different MCDs within the entire government, whether national or regional, there's so much data, and that data, it is meant to be able to have a relationship with the citizenry, engage the citizenry, and serve the citizenry. Of course, if you're a business, you want to use that data for business purposes, um, using the same relationship with your customer. It offers strategic advantage, and in this case, the more quality the data you have, the more quality business decisions you're able to make, and or rather strategic decisions you're able to make, and that can give you an advantage in the market. That can give you an advantage over your competitors. That can give you an edge in terms of service delivery, in terms of customer experience, in terms of product promotion, etc. So that business and strategic advantage is definitely a function of good data use. And I hope maybe you can touch a bit of what that means down the road. And then lastly, innovation and intelligence. Innovation needs information. You take information or you take data, you crunch it, you do analysis, you get some insights. Out of those insights, you're able to draw what are the points of opportunities. What can we do with those opportunities? Maybe create products, maybe do product enhancements, maybe change the market segment, and things like that. So you can innovate across all the different forms, all the different areas, whether it is the product, the service, the features, the target market, delivery channels, etc. And of course that couples with intelligence. Intelligence here, you can look at intelligence from a customer citizen service perspective, or even look at intelligence from national security issues, right? The police service, the military service, etc., who uses a lot of intelligence, which is essentially data in all sorts of ways, for to enable security for both border and internal. So there are many users of data. I think all of us would agree that data is important, information is power, and that at any point in time, um, we are always crunching data, even in our own minds. Even right now, you are crunching information. You're probably deducing some insights from it, and can help you make a decision of whether to keep staying here in this session or not, and things like that. So having said that, generally, of course, there are very many categories of data there broadly. So here I've just listed business data, personal data, health, financial, based on the use case, or based on the zone or the sector you're in, based on the business processes that you carry along. It could be based on the type of data you use, whether it's structured, unstructured, etc., etc. Some of those are much more detailed and technical, but generally the idea is their data broadly could be broken down into many different categories based on your what applies to you and your use case. And of course, in a typical organization, you would government or private, you would have business data, you'd have personal data, yeah. And of course, this organization can be in healthcare, where you have now healthcare data. If it is a financial institution, a bank, you'd have financial data. If it is a non-profit, you might have probably a third category that talks about community data and things like that. So whatever applies to you, it is important to appreciate that not all data falls within the same buckets. So you have to create buckets for the various categories of data that you have. And how do we do this? If just to mention from a data governance perspective, if you want to manage if you want to manage data within your environment, within your organizations or your agencies and things like that, typically you would want to build some sort of taxonomy. Taxonomy here means you categorize data starting from the high level, so level 1 or level 0, level 1, level 2, and then you say, fine, first we have this data. We have level 1 where we talk about, for example, business data. But then in level 2, we'll say this business data can be broken down into transaction data, can be broken down into administration data, can be broken down into any other categories. And you break down further and further and further, so that you have a whole sort of a tree that represents represent the categorization of the data that you have. And that is fundamentally important. And let me just mention this early, because when you talk about data privacy and protection, it is just a part of the entire data governance scope, right? So data governance has about 6 or 7 key areas. So data privacy and protection is just a subset of a proper data governance program. Yeah. So it is important to first know the data that you have, understand the data that you have, break it down to granular, to the least granular levels you can get. Separate that data into groups and categories, and then build out some sort of register or inventory or a record, of all that, um, you know, of all those of all that breaking down that you did. So you document all of that, and that then will form for you a nice basis for you to start thinking yes, we have all of this data, we've organized it in a certain way, then how can we ensure that we keep it safe in a way that is compliant to whatever laws or regulations or industry practices and requirements that are there, let's say within your sector, or whether it's public or private. So that is okay. Good. So that is data, in summary at a high level, and how you can start thinking from a data governance perspective before you even really go into what does this law says, which requirements should you need to fulfill. And because, of course, as I've mentioned, going further into the privacy and data protection subset, we then now start to really spotlight this category of information called data called personal data. And the word personal has the first part, which is person, right? So a person here is you and me individually, right? Each of us are a person, right? So personal data in that sense then is just information relating to an individual, each of us uniquely as individuals. So the information that relates to us, information that defines us individually, falls within the broad broad term of personal data. Yeah. And an individual, of course, if you're going to be unique, then you need to be identified or identifiable in that sense. What we mean here is that if we get a piece of data about you, it could be one piece of information, one piece of data that we can trace back to you as an individual and come and if we do our analysis and investigation, then we can trace back to you as an individual because it uniquely identifies you out of a group. Yeah. If you're already identified as a person, it could be that maybe one piece of information about you combined with another piece of information about you that has been found and discovered, then that both of these pieces of information then identifies you uniquely, right? What I'm trying to say here is a person, an individual in this sense, and within the context of data protection, typically is someone can be someone who can be.
Okay.
Hello, someone is speaking. Okay, good. Yeah, so at the end of the day, an individual here has to be uniquely identifiable, or someone who has already been uniquely identified based on different data points or different data pieces about them that can be traced and tracked back to them as unique persons. Of course, how do we go about identifying you? It can be directly or indirectly. So directly here could mean you go ahead and just tell me your name and your number and your ID or passport number, right? So if anything goes, I can always use your passport number because I know it is very unique to you. I can use your ID number because I know it is the only one that exists, and it's tied to your identity, right? Each of us as individuals have an identity. I mean, if from a social perspective, you could think of who you are, what you stand for, what are your values, and all that. But in this case, you could think about data points or data pieces that forms that identity about you. So like I've said, if it is your ID, that is then part of your identity that is recorded by the state, that the government has in its records. For example, let's say your birth certificate number. Yeah, that is a record in your as part of that birth certificate number is a record or a data point that ties to you or to your identity. And remember, this birth number is something that you can be asked in different places. For example, when you're applying for a passport and you issue it voluntarily because the state needs it to be able to do verifications and things like that. So essentially, through that, the state is able to directly identify you as a Kenyan citizen, probably born here, and you legitimately have a birth certificate. On the other hand, we could identify you indirectly, and there are multiple ways to do this. One, it could be by just getting information from other sources that is not you. right? So we don't ask you for information directly. We go to other registries, maybe publicly available documents that are there, that are out there. It could be records from your let's say KCPE, KCSE results, probably that are published somewhere, and they're publicly accessible. It could be records from your church, right? So we get these third-party sources of information that can then point us to you as an individual indirectly. And of course, collecting data indirectly is an allowable activity. It's justified to do that, as we shall see a bit later, even within the Kenya Data Protection Act. So these data points I'm talking about are basically what we call identifiers. So identifiers are just the little tiny, each individual unique piece of information that when singly or in combination can then form an identity or tie back to your identity uniquely as an individual. And so what I think all of us need to take from here is that at the end of the day, any piece of information, it doesn't matter where it is, how it came about, and I'll explain why. As long as it can be able to link back to you and be traced back to you individually, then falls under the broad scope of personal data. And that leads me to talk about data types, right? So I've listed these 4 categories, and I'm just going to do a quick overview of 3, and then and then explain one, which I think speaks a lot to speaks much to this indirect collection or sourcing of information. So one, there's this category we call ordinary, which I call ordinary data, but typically we just call it personal data. So you can call it ordinary personal data. Then we have special personal data, which is can also be referred to as sensitive data. There's derived data, or and then there is behavioral data. So let me pull up. Let me pull up. Yeah, let's look at this. I prefer using diagrams. I found them, a lot. Found them a lot useful. Okay. Good. So so as I mentioned, we have a bit of ordinary data, and I think just at a high level, we have these two categories. Rather, you can ignore the third one. So one is personal data. So this is your everyday ordinary information that you typically will be sharing or will be using at different places. I think it's very straightforward. Your name, your email, your phone number, home address, things that we use on a pretty much daily basis. So they're very relatable. But in the second table here, it's important to appreciate the sensitivity of these data points. As you can see, for instance, we have criminal records. That's not something that you probably would be asked a lot out here as you're going about your life, or rather, it's not something that you will clearly be sharing or you would even be willing to share, right? So there's a level of sensitivity to your criminal records, for example. It could be your blood type, right? I mean, how often do you share your blood type unless it is really needed, for example, right? It could be your medical records. Do you go about telling people, if you have cancer, or you're suffering from a certain chronic disease, or something like that. I mean, it's not your everyday required information. So there are certain cases, of course, that are needed. But the moment when they're needed, you definitely will always question if and why it is even necessary. Naturally, this is just a natural thing that we do. But then bottom line is that special categories of information have a high level of sensitivity, and because of that high level of sensitivity and the risk factors involved, then need special attention and due care in terms of how we protect and ensure privacy of individuals around that particular data. There's also this third category. I see. Simon, please give me a heads up in the next 3 minutes. I think this, as you indicate. There's this third category that I'd like to show here, which is called behavioral information. And this is, again, a lot of this are just usual everyday pieces of information that you interact with. For example, your browsing history. It's we all use browsers every day. We use it for work and all sorts of things. And all these browsers and all these web technologies record a lot of information about us. A lot of us will never know. Some of them are a bit more need more technical understanding, but the point is that your searching history on Google, your browsing history on all sorts of browsers, your preferences or things you like or you don't like, generally within the interwebs, across the internet, all of these things are traces of prints that you keep living as you're going through the internet. And thing is, I mean, if I'm able to create a pattern out of the things you like on your social media, then I'm able to clearly know that this person likes probably certain types of clothes, maybe like shorts a lot, and not just shorts. They probably like khaki shorts, and in that sense, then I can target you as a potential buyer of khaki shorts, right? In short, I'm talking about advertising. The whole manner of advertising that we normally see on our social medias, on our websites, things that keep popping up, especially the promoted ones in our timelines and things like that. All of these are information that um, can be derived from the data that you have shared or you put out there on these many different platforms that we use. So you kind of can define someone's life patterns, someone's behaviors, or someone's preferences generally, out of the data that is already there. And that's what we now come to talk about derived information, which is still personal information. Because if I give the government a piece of information about me, for example, what do you call these guys? The CRB, right? If I give the CRB or the banks give the CRB my information, and then an analysis is done, and then my credit score is determined, essentially that credit score is also tied to my identity, and it becomes an identifiable data point for me, right? So that also we need to take care of and ensure that we apply the necessary protection. I think, Simon, should I be stopping now, I suppose?
Hi, Cephas. Yes, yes. So it's quite an early break. We need to at least give a chance to the data commission. I'm told she's just joined us, but let me not waste much time. Let me allow Lynette to take the mic and pick it from here. Lynette, if you can hear me, Lynette works with Gwen from ICT Authority to introduce the data commissioner. Hi, Lynette. Lynette, you can unmute. If you're speaking, you're on mute. Unmute first.
Thank you, Simon. Okay. Thank you. Our CEO is just joining us in a few minutes. Let's give him a few minutes. He joins before we proceed. In the meantime, Madam Lynette, our Deputy Director, you can give a few remarks.
Thank you, Gwen. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Capabuil. Thank you, our trainers, for taking us through since Tuesday, yesterday, and today. Now, as we await our CEO, I would wish to, with humble requests, I would wish to invite our guest speaker, Madam Immaculate Kasait. Now, Immaculate Kasait is a data commissioner, Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, Kenya. Now, MBS, she is the first data commissioner with 12 years working experience in the public sector. She was the chair of the task force that developed the 3 sets of regulations for the Data Protection Act Kenya 2019. Under our leadership, ODPC developed its inaugural strategic plan 2022-2025 and set up a fully functional office. Now, she has further been very instrumental in positioning Kenya in the data protection map through membership to various international organizations on data protection, and now serves as the first vice chair to the board of the Network of African Data Protection Authorities. Now, Madam Kasait also serves as an editorial board member of the Global Privacy Law Reform. Now, Madam Kasait is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya of 14 years study, a building resource in democracy, governance, and election bridge facilitator, and was awarded the Moran of the Burning Spear Presidential Award 2017 for outstanding work in the public service and continues to take part in several activities as part of our community work. So it's my humble request to welcome the Data Commissioner, Madam Immaculate Kasait. Give her a round of applause as she joins us this evening. Welcome.
Thank you, Lynette. I'm laughing because I can't see who is clapping. You have to come up with a way of clapping online. Good evening, Lynette, Deputy Director at ICT, Gwen, the consultants who are on this project. I walked in, and of course the participants who, if were not for them, would not be here. I walked in when I think Brian was speaking about data, and from where I sat, I smiled when he said that data protection is a small element of data governance, but the most important, I have to say. I know this is a 2-hour program. I want to spend, I know it's a long day, perhaps you've had a long day. Spend as little time as possible. If there's an opportunity, I'll take on a few questions, and also people can type whatever questions they have. They can be sent to us. I'm sure they will have an opportunity to publish the answers. Just to quickly, I came in, there was a good discussion about personal data, so I don't want to dwell into that. But I think for me, because perhaps it's the first time some of you, not all, interacting with this office, is just important to give a bit of history and why it's important for the Office of the Data Commission. And if there are things I'm repeating, please feel free to stop me. Just a quick history. When we reflect on why data protection is important, because it really brings to the full the issues around right-based, human right-based. It's from an international level. We have the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, and also we have the Convention 108. Convention 108, which was passed in Europe in 1981, is probably one of the biggest convention, or what we say, which is used to define or give whatever governance in as far as data protection is concerned. After that, we had what you all know now, and especially if you're doing business in Europe, especially if you want your in a SME or you want to start BPO, or one of the biggest thing that has been discussed since 2018 is the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. From a regional perspective, we have the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity. And then also, because of how serious data is becoming, that's a convention within the African region that speaks to data protection. We also have the African Data Policy Framework adopted by the executive of the AU. That was in February 2022. In addition to that, just last year, June, the African Union passed an AI strategy. And also we have, out of all the African countries, we have 36 African countries which have adopted one form or another of data protection. So if you look at it, and even from our own constitution, where we say no one's your personal information and that of your family should not be exposed unnecessarily. And I listened in to the deliverables. I laughed when I had Well, I mean, I was smiling when I had some of the personal information is derived from behavior, and it touched right in the center of why data protection. Where else we might talk about very many things today in our state. Please remember that data protection has nothing to do with just business. It also has a lot to do with human rights. But at the center of it is customer is king. And to come to that, so that we're able to draw parallels, why is it important as far as factors of data protections are concerned? One, we are seeing an increase in terms of personal information being harvested, being mined, being utilized for e-commerce. We've seen personal data is one of the things that is so important in terms of e-commerce when people are making decisions about how this information will be utilized. You've seen that information, personal data to a developer. One of the things that I'm seeing somebody saying, I want to sue TikTok. Interesting. On the chat. To a developer, I know because you're taught to get as much information as possible. And that is why many times people will say this data protection is a deterrent because it is deterring innovation. But I want to ask, this personal information, this information we keep getting about people, don't they have a right to decide whether you should take the information or not and what it's being used for? Because that's the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter is we are in an era where personal information is collected for free. And think about it. Did anybody ask you to join any of the social media, or you went there because it was free? Wasn't it free? We were all asked, can I join? I want a free email. And then when you are whatevering your free email, you put in your personal information. What is your name? Immaculate Kasait. In fact, you even put all of them, even the one of the village. Then they ask you, and then of course, it clicks in terms of your location. Where are you from? You clicked. Then it asks you, because nowadays we want to know where you live. Can you tell us? We want to make sure that this information is secure. Please give us an address or an alternative email or something else something else that can verify this information using an OTP. So you give your phone number. Then what else do we ask? We then asked, at times they'll ask you which languages can you speak, you tick. So at the end of that free service, whether it's an email, whether it's a social media where you like to create content or get entertained, you've given so much of your personal information. But then what happens? Because I want to go back to what I think it's Brian. I think it's what Brian has said, that when you then go, they derive, they look at your cookies, they then look at that information, look at your patterns of shopping, what do you like, what do you tick on I like. Then it is subjected to algorithms and then they say, okay, this person likes to shop at this place at this time. They've been ordering X shorts, this color. I think they would like this kind of color. And then you ask yourself, why are they always bombarding me with information? But you're the one who gave them for free. For free. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in an era of what we call capitalist surveillance, that we share our information freely. And then the people who are asking for this information freely, they then convert it into assets of profit. And it is us who have shared. There is nobody else who has. So anyway, the Data Protection Act came, whether it is in Europe or those countries that are passing it, came to bring sanity or put guardrails. Because whereas that this information may look very harmless, in some extreme cases, you might have a situation of mental health issue, identity theft, And just to demonstrate an example of mental health is the one we have on digital lenders, which has been one of the most notorious cases in this part of the global south, where you go in and in other cases, you're desperate, you need money. So when you go in and you're desperate and you need your money, you then apply for an app online. They ask you, can I access your contact information? You don't read the terms and conditions, you say yes. So imagine when you don't pay that loan, unfortunately, what happens? They harass you. We've seen cases of people who have been so harassed that they're almost getting a mental breakdown. So when we talk about mental issues, it's real, about personal information. So this office is here to create those guardrails where then companies such as those digital lenders who are actually collecting your personal information, collect it and sign to certain factors. They say, if I'm collecting your personal information, I can only process it within certain categories. Number one, I can't process your personal information unless we have a contractual obligation. A contractual obligation is like you and your bank. And you and your bank, you have a contract, then they are allowed to process. Lawful purpose, another lawful basis is a legal obligation. There is a law requiring you to take an ID, they are allowed to take your personal information. For purposes of perhaps legal, judiciary, another one could be legitimate interest. You're their customer. They are allowed to send you messages because you agreed to it. However, it's not for commercial use. They cannot then collect your information and then start spamming you because they want to send you promotion messages. And like Brian said that cookies at times collect our information and at times we don't even know what happens. So you as a customer or you as a data subject, you have certain rights and obligations. You have certain rights, and one of the rights is to object to processing. If you feel or you are entering into an agreement with a certain company, please read the terms and conditions, because even now, if you look even in cookies, they will ask you, do you want all cookies? Do you want to access all the cookies or alternate or some of them? They give you options. Please tick, do not just tick yes, 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 yes. Read the terms and conditions, because that one you're also objecting to processing. The other rights you have is right to rectification. If people have collected your information, it is not accurate. When it is not accurate, you can then object. And I encourage you, if they are collecting information that is not accurate, you can write to them and say, this information that you have about me, you're calling me immaculate instead of immaculate, please correct it. And then there's a right also of erasure. Although that right is not absolute, when we say it's not absolute, it's not given. One of the things that you can do is to make sure that one of the things that you can do is make sure that as your information is being collected, you actually can say, this is what I want you share with me, this is what I don't want, things like that. So there are those rights under the Data Protection Act. If you want to familiarize yourself more on the rights under the Data Protection Act, you can always visit our website. In addition to that, we have the obligations for controllers and data processor. But who is a controller and who is a data processor? A controller is the person who comes and collects your personal information and say that we are going to use it for a specific purpose. If that controller goes outside what you agreed, you can object to it. Because there's something we say under the Data Protection Act, there's something we call data minimization, that they're not allowed to collect information for anything. Two, they're not allowed to keep the information forever. Now, there's no forever and never, amen. No. If you say you're collecting information because I'm your customer, when I stop being your customer, then you need to delete that information. You don't keep it in your archives. No, you delete it. So that is one of the obligations for the data controllers and data processors. Two, even as they begin to collect your information, they must put in place mechanisms that make sure they safeguard your information. And in case the information is breached, they have an obligation to report to this office within 72 hours. You as a data subject, you also can report to this office if you feel your rights have been violated. As an office, we have a period of 90 days where we resolve those matters, and all those forms are actually available online. The form where you will explain which right was violated, how it was violated, and what you would like, what remedy you would like the office to help you resolve. One of the concerns that people continue to ask is cyberbullying. Please remember, under the Computer Misuse and Cybersecurity Act, there is a process there for cyberbullying. You can actually then complain on that specific issue. The other thing that I would like to also speak to, that as you continue, some of the other things that I would like to talk to is when you transfer information about your data subject from Kenya to another country, you're supposed to make sure that those countries you're sending that information to is safe, and they are the necessary safeguard that information is stored in those countries. You can no longer just take personal information of individuals without explaining to them what it is for, and that is part of accountability. What it is for, what it will be used for, and how long you're going to store it. That is very important for them. Even if it's for contract or even if you're allowed by law, it's part of transparency to make sure that the data subject actually understand. We as an office continue to receive complaints, and when we receive complaints, we investigate and then we make determinations. When we make determination, we can either, when there is merit, we can either compensate, we can either fine, we can either also call what we call an enforcement notice as an office. The other thing I would like to just mention as from where I sit, is that some of the emerging issues in as far as data protection are concerned, and something we must pay attention to, is issues around artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, 5G, cybersecurity, blockchain, virtual reality, or big data analytics, and data privacy and governance that has been spoken about. Why are these things important? Even as we speak about artificial intelligence, we must ask ourselves, what are the guardrails that are being put there in as far as data protection is concerned? How can we make sure that the data subject is protected, that it's not interfered with? Because the truth is, today's world, although I sit in my computer, I can't tell half the people here where they are, although it's possible to tell if you look at the IP addresses. The question is, we feel safe, so we end up sharing too much. We end up sharing too much information about us. So as being here, we expose ourselves, we expose our families. And you see, what this act is supposed to is to remind us, and also to help us protect you from predatorial behavior, so that when those things happen, we are there to protect you as an office. I want us to reflect on what it means to have this office and to make sure that your data is actually secure. We are here to answer your questions. We are here to respond to any of the concerns that you have. But my parting shot as I conclude this, as I allow for any questions that are posed, is one, please remember you have rights under the Data Protection Act. Please remember these rights emanate from the Constitution of Kenya. Please remember your rights beyond the rights to object, the rights to correct ratification. You have a right to data portability. You can go to a bank, by the way, and tell the bank to give you your personal information and move with that information to another bank. You can go to a hospital, ask the hospital to give you your personal information and move with all that information to another hospital. That is called the right to portability. It is called the right to portability. I know in this country, many people want to hold to that information, but it's your information. So you have a right to actually access it. You have a right to erasure, and that is the right, that we call it the right to be forgotten. That when your information stays, it should not stay forever. But please remember, it's not absolute. There are laws and procedures at times governing. There are some companies which might say we keep your information for 7 years, 20 years, but at the end of that period, it should be done away with, and so on and so forth. The obligations, as I conclude, for data controllers, if you collect customer information, please make sure you familiarize yourself with the obligations under the Data Protection Act. Number one is registration. If you're within a certain category, you're supposed to register Number two, as a data controller, you're supposed to make sure that the information you collect for your customers are safe. Number three, you're supposed to make sure that the information as you collect, there's a lawful basis or there's a reason. Let me not, when you say lawful basis, you might think you're thinking legal jargon. There's a reason as to why you're collecting that information from customers. You must adhere to that reason and only collect only specific information. For instance, if you're running a boutique, and there's no reason why you need my name, my physical address, and where I'm going. No, you probably just need my name to identify me. The other information about my phone number, my what, that is not necessary. And that's how information ends up with data brokers who then sell it to third parties. And most importantly, please remember that this Data Protection Act came to make sure that you gain back your dignity. Your identity is your dignity. Two, for you as a person in business, your customer is king or queen. So please treat them with trust so that they're able to respect you back. Because if I knew you're sharing my information, then I'll not trust you. Let's see how that is lose customer trust. I want to end there, Lynette, and perhaps answer one or two questions if they're on the chat. As then I leave you to continue with the rest of the discussion. But before I leave, just let me tell you, we have offices across Kenya. All our services are available online. Lakini si kusema mnisalimia tafadhali, asanti. You can find us in Kisumu, Mombasa, Nakuru, Eldoret, and soon Nyeri. We have offices in Nyeri and also in Konza and of course Nairobi. If you have any question, we are available online. You can find all our information online, whether it's on registration, the procedure, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Kasait. We do appreciate your time. Now we have a few questions for you, and thank you. Now I'm going to request the trainer, Simon, to guide us with the key questions that have been highlighted by our participants, and you help us respond to them. Over to you, Simon. Kindly guide Madam Kasait through the questions.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated, our guest, Madam Kasait. There are so many questions here, but I'll just sample a few due to time constraints and the virtue of this session being a virtual meeting. So, yes, Gwen?
Madam Kasait is here with us until midnight. Ask all of them.
Wow, okay. So let me just start from the very top. Okay, let me see. So there's Johanna Kihiu who is asking, what can we do or what are we doing to protect personal data from government access? He says, like, for example, for the case of abductions, if it's Safaricom giving them the data or something like that, are we the public safe? And what can we do? That's the first question. Maybe you can respond to that as I compile the next few questions as well.
Okay. Let me say this, because this is something that keeps occurring. The question about how safe your customer data is with not just telecos. And I want to clarify the issues around data brokerage. It's not just an issue of telecos. We as an office, that's why we are here. We are here to make sure that we give you that assurance that if there's a complaint in as far as this issue of misuse of data protection of your data, this office is here to give you an assurance that that will be investigated and the necessary company, whether a telco or otherwise, the necessary actions are taken. One of the things that we have found as a gap, no one comes forth to actually file an official complaint. People say, oh, this one has done this and this has done and this, but it never translates to an actual complaint. Our office would like to encourage, if you're aggrieved, please file a complaint. Because, and this is the only way we can strengthen this jurisdiction, instead of us complaining without actually filing, because there's a procedure in terms of how we receive complaints, how we investigate, and how then we make determination for misuse of the personal data. But however, and I want to emphasize, everyone is under obligation, whether private or public company, to make sure that when they collect personal information, they ensure there are certain safeguards put in place. And that, like I said, that is how you assure trust to your customers. So for me, I would like to encourage those kind of complaints need to come to us officially so that it enables us to take necessary action.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. There's another question that I would also like to pose. This is coming from Yasin Hassan. He's asking, in light of increasing concerns about data privacy and community
So
involvement.
can I propose you pose like 2 or 3 so that I answer them together, if that's okay?
Okay. Let me ask 2 at a go. So the first question is from Yasin Hassan. He's saying, in light of increasing concerns on data privacy and community involvement, can you help clarify what regulatory measures are in place to ensure that organizations harvesting data from local communities actively involve those communities in the process? Specifically, how can those organizations be held accountable for not informing or engaging community members in data collection? And what actions can be taken to protect the rights of individuals whose data is being harvested without their prior participation or consent? Another question, the second one, from Duncan Juki. He says, my first question to our data commissioner, Madam Immaculate, can I sue a company like TikTok for collecting my contact information without my consent? Maybe you can go with those 2.
Let me start with the last one, and I want to pose, how did TikTok get your personal information without your consent? I'm just doing a follow-up because it's that's and again, can I both those, because they are all both talking about complaints. Let me give an example on the one on community. Some time back, some Kenyans just visited a big company in the US. And when they went there, a startup, they realized that information that was being analyzed was actually taken from some health centers in Kenya. Please, at that point, there was no safeguards. And you see, the truth of the matter is, for the longest time possible, people would come here and ask for information, they collect information, you fill information, and then they go and analyze. And I want to repeat and I hope it's Brian, what he said, behavioral. People take your health data, after they take your health data, they analyze, they come up with products. Let me say this, unless there are 9 reasons why a company can collect your personal information. Even doesn't fall within that. And the last one is consent. You have all the rights in the world to complain about that company. But many times we don't complain. And I think that is, I don't know whether it's frustration in this country because we are so used to talking and no action is taken, or that's the assumption. Hold us accountable if you complain and no action was taken and there was a violation of Kenyan. But I also want to put a rider in caution when it comes to community. Please note the Data to Protection Act requires individual. You can't write anonymous. You need to write me as Immaculate. This company came, they took my information, they didn't ask for my consent if it was for commercial use, and I am therefore complaining, and this is what I'm requesting, because it's a judicial process. If you're applying on behalf of the community, you really must also get the community to agree with you. Umenielewa? Kama Now Kiswahili has potered. Let me just speak to English. If you have a complaint about a company that came to collect personal information in a village for a community, complain. Complain. Because we as a commission have taken action against people who have misused people's information. We have so many decisions on that complaint. Partly, I agree, and I'm very happy to ICTA for this opportunity to come and interact, because part of the challenge is awareness. It has not permeated to the lowest level. Complain, because it's your personal information, your dignity. Why are you taking my information without my consent if we didn't have a contract? If it is not the law requiring you to do so, if I am not your customer, if it's not a sick person I'm doing on their behalf, if there are so many ifs, if it is non-novice and you didn't ask me, why are you taking my information? Complain. And the one on TikTok, I'm keen. Please let's know how that information, would be very interested in knowing how they took your information without your consent. And we are happy to take on all these challenging situations to help you resolve, because we're also building as jurisdiction. We don't want to be seen as the Africa where we are guinea pigs. No, we must take charge of our information. Okay, next question.
Okay, let me ask other two questions. There are so many interesting questions here. This is from Mark Namasake. What actions is the Office of the ODPC taking against individuals who are sharing politicians' phone numbers on social media platforms? I've seen this on Twitter. That's the first question. Then we also have Waidira Njau. No, we have Jamal Nasser. I'll come to Waidira later. Second question, can the commissioner explain to us the procedure followed when someone's data has been violated? Lastly, what strategies is her situation using to educate citizens on their rights for data protection? Those two questions.
I wish we had all the resources to make sure we're in every village. And Lynette, I want to request that perhaps when you have your sessions, give us even 30 minutes to talk about data protection, because I think this is a very good catchment area to just get the information out there. And this is part of the things we are doing, creating awareness through this kind of forums. But you know, Kenya, maybe in your chats you've seen and you have seen data protection advert in social media. Lakini udaku. I hope now when you hear about data protection, you'll pay a little bit more attention. You see, it's here to protect you. The question about violation, what happens? Let me explain the procedure. If your right is, and let me explain based on an example with myself as Immaculate. Assuming that I got a message from company X. I'm neither their customer. The first thing I do is to write to them and tell them, excuse me, you're sending me messages. Please get rid of this message. They can give you what we call an opt-out. Opt-out is basically to say, remove me from these messages. I am happy because I'm not your customer. If you tell them that and they don't remove you, the next step is to write to us as the Office of the Data Commissioner. We have what we call a complaints form, and the complaints form is actually in our regulation. I didn't have a chance to explain the regulatory framework. I had, but I thought you don't give people too much legal jargon. We have a standard operating procedure on filing a complaint. So when it comes to us, we review the complaint, because remember, I've said in that form which is online, and since these are, you can even go on our website and check. It will tell you what are you complaining about, which rights have been violated, and by who. So we will say it's company X. They've sent me unsolicited message, which is for commercial use, and XXS. I am requesting for A, B, C, and So once we do that, we embark on an investigation. Remember, we have 90 days. So we'll undertake investigation. We have what we say a right of reply. So we'll write to the company, we'll ask them, we have this X and X person, in this case, Immaculate, she's saying that you've been sending her spam messages. And then if you are not, please respond to us within this duration of time. Initially, there are those who used to ignore. So when you ignore, we come for you with what we call a enforcement notice. Now we can see some level of reaction. So you will say, right back to us, you will say, yes, it is true. Or yes, it is true, but can we seek an alternative dispute resolution? We allow you to go and sort. Or you will say, yes, it is true. Then you give us, no, it is not true. So we will come to your premises, undertake an investigation, confirm that actually what has happened. If we establish that indeed you're on the wrong, that is when we fine you or we compensate the data subject. And we write what we call a determination. We say, just like law, we say, these are the facts of the case. Immaculate had her whatever. Immaculate was getting spam messages from your company, and we told you to stop. You did not. She told you to stop. You did not stop. We have established it was true, and these are the findings, and we compensate if there's a compensation, and then we give a determination, making a finding. So if that is not addressed, and we give you 30 days on what you need to do, review your systems, train your staff, and so on and so forth. In 30 days, if that's not addressed, we now go for what we call a penalty notice. So that is the procedure for us when we receive complaints from members of the public, or what we call data subject. That's the procedure. We scrutinize if it is merited. Some of them are what fall within the realm of cyber and misuse. Because whereas, and let me say this, our act targets not individually, it largely targets companies. It targets companies or government, you see? That is what the act looks at. The issue around kusalimia watu, which I still say in this country is a bit of bad manners, but I hope we'll get over it when we'll get over it. As an office, what we have done, we actually issued a public statement about that issue and said, don't share people's personal information, because if it was you, you wouldn't like it. I got salimiwat for saying that. Anyway, that is the nature of public office jobs. We issued a statement. I think it remains a challenge. I still say that as Kenyans, we need to act responsibly. It may look like we don't know what we are doing, and we have also encouraged people that if you are aggrieved in as far as your rights are violated under the data protection, that is cyberbullying. That is cyberbullying. Action should be taken even under the Cybersecurity and Misuse Act. I think I have I've answered the question to the best of my knowledge. Next.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. There are so many questions here. Let me pick the very latest. So there is a Jennifer Wanami. Hi, Immaculate. I would like to help me understand how prisoners have been getting our phone numbers, which they use to scam us of our cash in M-Pesa and banks. That's the first question. And then there is Alphonse Kipkemboi. There was an incident involving WorldCoin. Could there be a way one can request for deletion of their data collected? I think we can look.
One of the things I think we need to partner with both ICT Authority, CA, and Interior is to educate people about the demarcation of rules, because the question around scamming by prisoners is actually a crime. It's a crime that needs to be that is dealt with at length in terms of cyber crime. That's a crime. Unfortunately, it doesn't fall within the realm of the Office of the Data Protection Commission. what I would say, the question I would say is something that needs to be looked into on how that happens. And I think the DCI has been taking actions to arrest when that actually does happen. On the issue of WorldCoin, what brought us to Infamous, it should allow you to delete. Please remember I said under the right of the data subject, one of the rights you have is the right to for a leisure and to be forgotten. That is something that you should be allowed to do, whether they are in or not. They should be able to delete your information and it should be forgotten. I must also add, one of the biggest challenges in today's technology, including blockchains, because some of these systems are not built in a way that can be deleted. That is a risk that we can discuss from today to Kingdom Come. But under the Data Protection Act, it is required that once a data subject demands that their information is deleted, it is deleted immediately without delay. And if it doesn't happen, you can come to us as an office and or complain so that we can investigate and make sure it happens.
Thank you.
We are done with the question. I'm happy.
Many questions here. So we have Tony. Kindly ask the question on opportunities available at the Data Protection Commission. The last time they posted opportunities was in May last year. When are applications for this year? That's question one. And then Yvonne Akinyi is asking, are there any challenges in your department? That's a very interesting question. So you will at least try look at that. Let me add a third question. There is David Ochieng. He's saying, I would like to know how your organization is approaching the issue of political parties, accessing phone numbers and juxtaposing them as members of their political parties. Your organization failed to protect citizens in the 2022 electioneering period. Wow, that's a very sensitive question as well. Madam Commissioner, you can look at those three questions.
No, I say there is nothing wrong with expressing your opinion. If you strongly feel that way, it's important to let us know in terms of help, because it's by telling us feedback that we are able to improve an organization. And I want to start with that question on political party. There is nothing said. By the way, I always say this is a government office. We have an open door policy. If there are issues you think we are not doing right, please let us know so that we are able to improve as an office. Because at the end of the day, this office, we are here because we get our salaries paid by taxpayers. We are accountable to taxpayers, and let us know how then we improve. So having said that, let me go back and flash back in terms of political party. Let's talk about the history. Please let's remember, before 2020, there was no Data Protection Act. Please remember, before 2020, there was no Data Protection Act. What does that mean? It meant that anybody could get anybody's information and use it anyhow. This office came into, and I'm not saying this to try and sugarcoat what we did or did not do right. I'm just trying to show you we made intervention and are trying to make this better. This office was established, in 2021, in 2020. At the point of where we are going to an election, I think this office was 1 year in office. Our first major challenge was political parties and digital lenders. And how we went about it, because you also advise as a regulator, when you see a trend that is spiraling up, the best way to deal with that kind of a situation is to actually go and understand what the problems are and try and address them from the root cause. Because even if you try and address all the problems at a go, it might be challenging, you may not be able to. So what did we do? If I recall 2021, we developed what we are calling a guidance notes on elections. The guidance note on election was supposed to guide political parties and the registrar of political parties and IBC on how to deal with personal data. Because all of them, this is a new field. So beyond that intervention, we also went and trained political parties and the registrar. What did they do? They went and gave an opt-out option in as far as when you found yourself listed as a political party. Those are the interventions we made. Why did we make this intervention? Please remember, this was 6 months or 1 year into office. The regulations had not come into place. We did not have staff personnel. The best way we could make that intervention is by one, building capacity, creating awareness. Because I always say it and I'll repeat, it doesn't make sense for you to become a regulator and immediately start whining around a stick. Who are you targeting? You need to first build trust, open doors, create policies. Then when people disobey those ones, then come for them. That is what we did. If in 2027, we see a similar repeat and no improvement, then you can say these people are not serious. I would want to ask for a benefit of doubt so that you see we did something, maybe it not have been comprehensive, but also now people are more woke and they know you can no longer use their data as you like. The second question, the challenge we have, of course, is that one. Would want a lot of, in terms of making sure that every single Kenyan, and that's my pain, my grandmother in the village should understand data protection as they understand. If you ask any Kenyan about some of the health challenges, for instance, during COVID, even in the deepest of villages, everybody wore a mask and they kept distance. That is what we'd want. That data protection becomes the buzzword in every village, in every household. Why? Because when people understand how valuable their personal information is, they'll not give it just like that. And they will hold people accountable for their personal information. For me, that is what I see as one of the way of changing this culture. Opportunity. It is, there are many opportunities in this space. It's not just in the Office of the Data Commissioner. Please remember in the last 1 year or 2 years, we have many people expressing this space is opening up tremendous opportunity from capacity building to audits to, there are many opportunities, not just necessarily in the Office of the Data Commissioner, because again, our work is to make sure we are creating guardrails and trust so that we have more people coming, more businesses opening. And one of it is the adequacy decision, which we're in the middle of negotiating with the EU. When that comes through, we'll have more BPOs, or what we call business process outsourcing, setting up in Kenya, because there will, and therefore increasing opportunities for many more Kenyans. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Immaculate. I have 3 more questions for you. The first one from Betty. What is our ranking, Kenya? What is our ranking internationally in matters data protection? And then there's another question from Vincent and Paris. I think these 2 questions are similar. One says, I request the Data Commission to enlighten us on how to handle a situation where a group photo is posted on an organization's Facebook page or any other social media page. And then one person maybe in the photo raises a concern that he does not want his image to appear on the page. I think a similar question to Paris. How about those people who post skits, surprising people on the streets? I think these are pranks. And then go and post those short videos on social media without your consent. I see that in Kenya YouTube channels a lot. Can I sue that individual since they, without consent, took a video of me pranking me and I was not aware it will end up on social media? Yes, Madam Immaculate.
I think the challenge of an individual is what would be the basis. If it's a company Facebook account, because you see, our work is to look at data controllers and data processors. You see, that individual doesn't fall within that category. It becomes a bit tricky in terms of launching a complaint. I would suggest that it's important to let those kind of people to bring down that page. However, when it comes to a company, we have the mandate to deal with companies. We have complaints are brought against companies about because they are either data controllers or they're data processors, because that is where our mandate falls. Those ones you can bring to us. And where a complaint is raised on a social media page, my recommendation is, if they file a complaint, please just make sure, so that you're not getting into this conflict, just let them please explain that the information you're collecting will appear in your social media page and ask them to consent expressly, because social media is for commercial use and there is a fine. It ranges from 250 to 750. You don't want to be caught up. I mean, you don't want to be a business that is paying fines in this town. Just get it right. And getting it right is training your staff, doing audits for your company, making sure everybody understands. There are many lawyers and ICT experts who are out there willing to help you walk this journey. Take baby step. Because why do you want to get caught up? Don't publish people's photos for commercial use and they have not agreed to it. It's not necessary. Give them an option to opt out. When you receive those kind of complaints, please act on them before they come to us. I would really urge that when you run a business, just pay a little bit more attention to data protection, because it's my information. I've not said you use it, but for the individual, it might be tricky. But for a company, that one is within our realm as an institution.
Thank you so much for that. I hope the people asking all these questions, you are keen enough to get direct answers from the data commissioner herself. Now, we also have another question here. Someone is asking, saying they are worried about when it comes to performance contract. I think this is in terms of employment, because nowadays it's your supervisor who keys in your details like passwords for them to be able to appraise you online. How sure are we that our personal data like payslip information is safe, even if they have logged staff out, since maybe some of them can memorize the password? That's one question. And then we also have another question. I think one question is repeating a lot. Maybe I can tell it to you also. I can see most questions on opportunities, internship opportunities, becoming data protection ambassadors, and even employment. Maybe you can also address that. That's the second question. And then there is another question from Vincent. Fraudsters easily access Kenya's phone numbers and ID details to register fake loans. In brackets, Fuliza, M-Shwari scams, and what have you. How do criminals get this data? I think that's the question. And what is ODPC doing currently to minimize or stop it? Those are the questions.
Last question has a lot to do with what we call deep public, what is it called? Infrastructure. That last question has a lot to do with silos. The way I say that, it's because and it's a historical issue that perhaps we could address in the long run, that we have so many data entry points in our economy that there is no centralized way of checking one in another. So that way you find then you may never know who has access to my information. But in my view, if this was harmonized, like it's very easy to know when my information is being used somewhere else. Now, because people, you see, we have very many different data collection points. And at times, these are not even being collected by government. It's by different people, whether it's banks, it's telecos, it is insurance companies. I'm just thinking of the top ones. It's hospitals. There are so many people. So you see, because, and they don't speak to each other. So you see, you may never know which one, where your information is being collected and where your aid is being misused. And I'll say what we have done in cases where we've had those kind of complaints, where there was our work, like I said, is to investigate the data controller, and there's infringement of the right of the data subject. We find if there is none, we don't. But I'll say this again. I'll say this is more criminal, and it's important when you send a complaint to us. We'll actually then I've dealt into it just to clarify, but this is more of a criminal matter. Please remember, we don't deal with criminal matters in the Office of the Data Commissioner. We deal with the rights of the data subject, and our two people who we deal with is called a data controller and data processor. That is our mandate, and it's civil. Now, when this borders on criminality, then it moves from us to DCI. And that is where it falls under. So you see, it's very difficult for me to pick up an issue that is of criminal in nature, because then I'll be dwelling into somebody else's mandate, which is outside my scope. The issue around the supervisor, imagine that is an issue I would want perhaps, Lynette, you pick it up in terms of hygiene, because that could, because we say that could only mean in an institution that you have challenges in terms of securing your passwords, because they should never be shared, never. A password should never, ever be shared. It's your password. If it's about appraising, then that system should be able to demarcate. When this information is pushed to the next level, that person can then use their password. I think that's an issue that, Lynette, falls within your purview. You can probably pick it up at the point where you're educating them about security, because that's a security issue. And you can see what is being discussed is the risk of that shared access to password and how it can expose personal information. I think that one is where the strengthening needs to happen. And I believe that, Lynette, that's something you can pick. On issues of, I'm aware that we are in space where there's difficulty in terms of youth employment. And unfortunately, even if we wanted it is not possible to absorb everybody, even on this call. However, I want to say, this being a new area, where are the opportunities? This being a new area I want to say, you as a youth who is on this call and are interested in matters data protection, if I were you, I would package myself. One, I would try and get, even if there are free trainings on data protection, which are offered at times either online, or even if it requires a little bit more of my spending in some institutions that are offering data protection courses. There are short courses on data protection. Then from there, I'm able to package myself in terms of what I'm able to offer. If I want to specialize in terms of creating awareness or training, there are many people out there who want to be trained on data protection. That is one. So you see, that training is an opportunity right there. The other one is to undertake audits. There are many companies from SMEs. Imagine in this country, we have 1 million companies. If you go by the statistics by BRS, 1 million companies that want to be audited. Even if it's simple, telling them where do A, B, C, D. 3, there are people, if you have skills in terms and you're good in writing, there are people who want their data policies written. Those are small things. Those are opportunities. I want us to, and that's the challenge for us. How can I be self-employed in this space of data? And how can I be self-employed? Because the truth of the matter is, when we look at how much tech is offering out there, it's so much. There's so many people doing startups. Will your startup be the first one? And you see, people are interested in startups. When people are interested in good ideas, and startups are good ideas, there's so many companies here which are giving young people an opportunity to build their skills. They are both in the ministry, they are also out there. I know a few, like for instance, our sister company, our sister parastatal Konza has a space called Timbuktu, which they recently launched. Right there are many opportunities in terms of building your capacity. There's what ICTA and Konza are collaborating on called Jitume. Those are opportunities right there for digital jobs. Those are opportunities. I would really encourage you, don't see the glasses half empty, because I kid you not, we say, because my training is a lawyer, if you go to your farm and you sit there the whole day, hutakosa customer. Lakini ukikaa home, hutapata customer. Those computers in many of these institutions are there for us. There's free Wi-Fi. There are free opportunities for jobs out there. At least try. Mtu hakufi ni kukosa kujaribu. Try. There are many opportunities in that space. If we narrow down to this particular one, you might get frustrated because there may not be as many. But I want to say, you package yourself. We need to look at tech like what we look at farm produce. Mkulima tu anaenda analima, they hope they'll get good avocados, they'll get good maize, they will sell, they'll get the same thing about tech. Try. We really have to try. You'd rather die trying by not trying at all. Okay.
Interesting. So I have List of, I think, last more questions. I think you have answered most of the questions that the audience had. Even the pace of questioning has actually gone down. So I'm not seeing questions coming in high frequency. But before I read the last group of questions to our data commissioner, there is something I want to highlight. There is a link to a WhatsApp group that someone has posted on the chat section. It's interesting because in as much as we are trying to address issues to do with data protection and creating awareness, there's a link that has been shared for a WhatsApp group. I know some of you might have joined it innocently, but I want to clarify that it's not in any way associated with ICT authority. In as much as that's the title of the WhatsApp group plus the logo, I want to repeat, it's not in any way associated with ICT authority, nor is it anywhere associated with Capabuil Limited. So anyone who's considering to join that WhatsApp group through that link, please reconsider your option. Do not. And also those who have already joined that WhatsApp group, our advice is that you exit that WhatsApp group. So kindly adhere to that for your safety, because we don't know who has created that WhatsApp group and why he wants people to join that WhatsApp group. Thank you. Now, for the last round of questions to our data commissioner, number one from Timothy: how does one become data protection officer in order to carry out a DPIA? Number two, does one need to be registered by the Data Protection Commission? I think that is a question that is following the first one because it's coming from the same person. And then, so the second question will be from Lenric. How is the ODPC making sure that vulnerable groups, for example, my 60-year-old auntie or uncle who just learned how to shop online without accidentally ordering 10 pieces of everything, are actually protected by the country's data protection laws, especially when digital literacy is still a bit of a foreign concept to them? That's the second question. Then the third question, I think from Timothy again: can advocates represent clients in filing complaints? Can advocates represent clients in filing complaints? Last question, should embassies register as data controllers? Should embassies register as data controllers? Then an additional last question from Alphonse: how are you dealing with online lenders who call your relatives whenever you default paying? How are you dealing with online lenders who call your relatives whenever you default paying? I think those will crown our session with our data commissioner. So let me allow her to crown responses to those questions. Karibu sana, Commissioner.
On the digital lenders, I'll start with that one. We deal with them very perpendicularly, if I may use that word. We have dealt with many digital lenders. And if you notice, there has been a decline. And even now, and I'll repeat this, we are considering taking away some of, oh gosh, what has happened? Hey. Taking away some of their certificates for those who are repeat offenders. You can hear me? Those who are repeat offenders, and even perhaps getting into a mutual agreement with the Foreign Office of the Attorney General, because some of these have apps which are hosted in countries that are outside here, to actually have them dealt with. That is how we are dealing with. The issue around embassies, it's important to, because you see, the law doesn't exempt. However, when it comes to embassies, we always, there is what we call exemption under internationally recognized law. There's no express requirement of such because of that exemption as embassy. Advocate, we've seen advocates here right on behalf of their clients. So that is welcome. The issue around the 16-year-old, like I said, that's a mandate, and I agree with you. It's the issue around digital literacy. And I think, Lynette, like I said, I think we need to be a bit more aggressive in terms of creating awareness on matters of digital lenders. I mean, they are not digital lenders, digital literacy, for especially that group, because they go online. They are sent so many messages. There are trollers there. There are people targeting them. I mean, for me, I get horrified when you imagine even the kind of information they access. I think that what I would encourage, because even as we continue to do this and we may not be as effective, you know, a long time, when I grew up, we all knew that we'd wait for KBC, you know how old I am, at 4 to start VOK. And we all knew, I mean, which programs. No, it was programmed. Started at this time and midnight it was off. And we all thought, this is lack of liberalization. Now we are liberal and we have so much. It is so TMI, my God, for our children. Even if we tell them to get off social media, they don't listen. Or they'll hide and try and get to social media when you can't see. For me, as a parent, I would really encourage you to have that conversation, to tell them the yes or not. But more importantly, can I recommend that one of the organizations that has been very active in terms of digital literacy is also Communication Authority. They have a program on digital literacy for young people. I would suggest you also try and access their online channels, because at least they have, even as we think about combining. Why is Lena blowing her nose hacky? Anyway, we try to utilize that channel to help you in terms of getting to inform your daughter so that they are aware. Because also I think we let go of our own responsibility as a community, whether church or otherwise, to inform people in terms of their responsibility. We as an office are seriously looking into how we'll partner with some of those social places to be able to share information so that people are much more informed. There's no requirement for you to register as a DPO as an individual, but for you, I would say, for you to be recognized as a DPO, it comes from an organization. They're the ones who then come and register you. They'll say, we are company X, so and so is our DPO. That is how it works. The rest of us in this space, you can only say that's the area you specialize on. And then perhaps pitch, you never know. Pitch to companies, to individuals, you never know, people who might require your service and then actually then give you work in this area. I think I've answered all the questions.
Yes, thank you. I'm seeing so many congratulatory texts. The audience appreciating, saying very informative session, very educative, so on and so forth. So at this point, I want to give an opportunity to Gwen. Gwen, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Yes, Gwen.
Thank you, Simon. I just wish to hand over to our Deputy Director, Lynette, who will then welcome our Director, CPA Coach. But just to say thank you to our very own Immaculate Kasait, the Data Commissioner. Thank you for your time. Thank you for that elaborate, informative session. And we look forward to calling on you more oftenly. And as you have mentioned, the 3 areas, we will be glad to partner and also discuss about demarcation of roles, then partnership between ICT Authority and ODPC, then just maybe something, digital literacy entirely. It's about ICT Authority. And we are glad that you brought it out very well. And anyone wishing to really do digital skills, we have Smart Academy. Just visit smartacademy.go.ke. But Data Commissioner, asante sana for the short notice you've been able to honor. We are glad. Participants are so happy. They are so satisfied, excited to see you. You are a real model and a celeb. I wish to hand this over to Madame Lynette, who will then welcome our Director, CPH Coed, to say something before we close. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Lynette.
Thank you, Gwen. Now, thank you so much, Madam Immaculate Kasait. We have taken into consideration what you have requested us, and we still say digital literacy matters. Digital literacy is all the ICT authority. We are targeting to train the 20 million Kenyan citizens. As Gwen has said, kindly visit the smartacademy.go.ke and get trained. Now, at this time, and what I would say, they have really appreciated you, and no much or I've no wants to say thank you. Thank you for sitting through, and we do appreciate the time and the opportunity you have given the Kenyans, the citizens. You can imagine we clocked all the way to 500 plus people. They sat in through. Yes, they are quite a number.
Wow.
And as we say right now, they are at 488.
Yeah.
So you can imagine. So we'll still call upon you once more to join us.
I'm
I'm
happy,
sure
by the way. I'm very happy to join. For me, we like I said, I would like data protection to be the buzzword, because I think we've had enough of being used as guinea pigs. This is the generation of AI. I mean, we should empower our youth to realize when they share information what it means, but also the opportunity out there for them to actually then protect their own personal data and ask questions and be part of this ecosystem. Because they're the creators, they need to then make sure even as they're creating, it's also safe. Thank you.
We will keep on knocking, and we appreciate the offer, and the offer is taken so much. We will keep knocking every time, because you always have evening classes for the citizens and also for the public sector. So we do appreciate. At this time, I would wish to appreciate our director, CPA Richard Koech. Now, CPA Richard Koech, it's your humble duty to appreciate Madam Kasait and also our trainers and the participants. Over to you, Koech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Lynette, the Data Protection Commissioner, and our facilitators, Capabuil, and all the participants. Good evening. I hope I can be heard. I'm in a public place, but let me hope that you are hearing me. Lynette, could you confirm that you are hearing me from your end?
Yes, we can, Director. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really, my duty is to, in a very special way, thank Madam Immaculate Kasait, the Data Protection Commissioner, for the very elaborate, very articulated presentations. I came in when you are doing the Q&A, but I can for sure, having listened to you elsewhere, I have this confidence that you are in the right place, doing the right job, and because of the passion and the competence that you display in the role of Data Protection Commissioner. So we want to truly appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing the insightful, the informative, the educative, and making sure that we got engaged. I saw the participants were very actively involved. They were keen to know what this is all about, how their private data can be protected even better. There is a lot of interest in this field, and we want to appreciate the fact that you are spearheading this particular function and this office so well. To Capabuil, we want to appreciate your facilitating the training for free, and your partnership is one which we don't take it for granted. You've always come through for us as we train our staff and also as we offer even sensitization to the public. So we truly appreciate your facilitation and ensuring that this particular training became a success. The participants, we truly appreciate. Madam Kasait, you can realize I could notice that the participants were interested in opportunities in your office, not so much because they want a job. It is more because of they have identified you as a very a good potential boss. Someone said it must be vibes working under you as their boss. So many of them have created more interest because of your personality and your warmth, the way you present issues. So I think even myself, I am tempted to believe you must be a good employer and you must be taking good care of your staff. But to all the participants, thank you for your time. ICT Authority is very keen on sensitizing the public, the general public, about all these matters, because data protection is at the heart of cybersecurity. It is at the heart of information security, and therefore, without data protection, then we will not be talking about information security. So we will continuously engage ourselves. We would encourage you to register with us at Smart Academy for many courses, many great sensitization programs, many educative and interactive experiences like we have had today. Most of the things that we talk about in these trainings are very practical. They are things that apply to our day-to-day lives. There are things that cannot be taken for granted in this information age. So I would want to just encourage you to join in, log in, register. Most of these courses are free and they will for sure have an impact in our lives. You know, we are interacting with so much. There's so much that's happening in this space at the moment. To my colleague Lynette and your other colleagues who have facilitated and made this to happen, I want to truly appreciate on behalf of the CEO and ICT Authority at large. We are grateful that you are taking your time, even beyond hours, to make sure that you are doing something extra for the people of Kenya and for the ICT Authority and for the public service. This is a sacrifice that does not go unnoticed. We are truly grateful. So for now, my name is CPA Richard Koech. I'm the Director for Corporate Services at ICT Authority, and I am so glad to have joined and to have been part of you. Asanteni sana, have yourselves a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, CPA Koech. We do appreciate. To the trainer, Okoth, you do want to continue a little bit more? Simon?
I'm still around. I want to check if I think the data commissioner, Madam Immaculate, has addressed quite a lot of questions, especially coming direct from the audience. I think at this stage, the only concern we might have for our audience is on certification. I'm seeing that question coming up, especially even if you look at the charts. Since also this is the last day of our training, maybe you can comment on the certification. Maybe Gwen can help on that so that as they log out after this session, at least they know if they'll get certification. They also mentioned something like an exam or some set of questions. So I think we can also try to address that at this point. Otherwise, before that, maybe if Cephas, you are around, you can also unmute and give your remarks.
Okay, before the trainer comes, now in terms of the certification, yes, we do have an online assessment. did you attend the 3 days? If yes, we will share a link through the email that you registered with. And then with that link, there is where you can click and then you join in and do the assessment. Now, the assessment is a multiple choice question around the cybersecurity, all that has been covered the 3 days. There are 35 questions. You need to get 70%. And then once you pass, you will automatically get a virtual, or you get a certificate via your email. Now, all these has been catered for by the ICT authority and our training partner, Capabuil, and we really do appreciate. So unless our trainer has something to say.
Yes. So I think at this point, nothing much on my part in terms of presenting. The commissioner has done a good job to highlight a lot of the foundational aspects, which were essentially part of my presentation today. Of course, there are a bit of explainers here and there, which I think if we share the slide deck, the audience should be able to connect with. But just as a parting shot on my side, is to emphasize that at the end of the day, whether individually or as part of a corporate body, data protection is a shared responsibility. So it starts with you individually, goes to your family, goes to your friendship, goes to your church, go to your workplace, etc. So we need to have the idea that it's a shared responsibility. Number two, it's important to be able to build the culture of reading those privacy notices and privacy policies, or anything, any piece of information that you are offered at any point in time where your data wants to be collected. I know some are presented, in very detailed format. The presentation might not be very eligible in a sense, or easy to read, or user friendly, etc. But there are certain key elements that you'd want to at least, at the very least, while you're scanning some of those disclosures, try and narrow down on certain areas of the terms of service, including what data is being collected, and how is it going to be used. And then importantly, if you can opt out. I think I will highlight those three, and the commissioner has really talked about opting out. So of course there are others. So with practice, you would be able to always narrow down on some certain areas, because it's hard to lead all those legal documents. Number three would be, if you can exercise those rights that the commissioner mentioned, and you can as easy as go to the commission's website and look at the information they're providing around the rights. Or do a simple Google search. Really, you'll get an understanding of what those rights are, and try and exercise, even if it is once or twice a year, which is a drop in an ocean, but something to think about. And then next is, at the end of the day, golden rule applies, right? So do to others what you want done to you. So whether it's individually, or while you are in your organizations handling customers' data, try and be fair, try and be ethical, try and do right by the data that is in your hands, so that even as you handle it, you always are thinking about what if someone does this to me? Will I accept it? Will it be okay? And all that stuff. Because fundamentally, for most of us, our values are the same. We want to be respected, we want to be valued, we want to be cared for, we want to be loved. And some of these values really underpin the whole ethical idea of being responsible as to how we handle personal data. So with that, I think I will just share my my contact in the chat, and then in case anyone wants more information or practical guidance or support, particularly for the organizations, me and my team can be able to help. Otherwise, asante sana. Back to you, Madam Deputy.
Okay, thank you so much to our trainer. We do appreciate. And to the participant, we do appreciate the patience from day one all the way to the third day. And you're saying this is not the end, it's just the beginning. We'll still invite, and she has offered that we can keep on inviting her for the trainings. So we will invite her, Madam Kasait, once more to come and answer as many more questions as possible. And with that, unless Gwen, you have something to say, we say bye-bye. Gwen?
Thank you so much. We have enjoyed, we are happy, and we thank Sefa Sokot, we thank Simon, we thank Capabuil, we thank Didi, we thank ODPC, and we thank everyone who has attended. To all our esteemed delegates, thank you for your time and be blessed. Back to you, Didi. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. On behalf of Capabuil and ICT Authority, through the incredible leadership of Gwen and our deputy, Lynette, we are deeply grateful, especially for ICT Authority considering to partner with Capabuil in this noble initiative to empower the public on critical areas in terms of cyber privacy. I also want to thank Cephas. Cephas is a very industrious expert in this field, and his dedication to doing this work of empowering professionals in this field is always prioritized by him. So on behalf of Capabuil also, we are deeply grateful. And to our audience, the public was managed to join close to 500 people. We are deeply grateful as well for joining in and showing the interest to expand your professional horizons and standing firm in this wave of technology, and especially digital and data privacy and cybersecurity issues. So we really appreciate. Keep on sharing this with your colleagues, friends, and family members. I know this is not the last session we are going to have, but many more to come. And as a closing remark from me on behalf of Capabuil, I would just like us to know that Capabuil is also organizing for a CPD training in Nairobi Safari Club from 24th of February on data privacy, governance, cybersecurity, and artificial intelligence. This one is costly. It is going for 50,000 shillings, tax inclusive, for everyone who will be able to attend. So feel free to reach out to us and be part of the congregation at Safari Club from 24th of February, 2025. We also have other programs that you can consider. Especially, I'm just trying to look for, yes, we also have CPD trainings on business intelligence, focusing on artificial intelligence assistant tools for data management. We also have in March a program on data analytics and artificial intelligence. We have also a program in April on Excel, Masterclass, Excel, Power BI, and so many other corporate training programs that we have been providing to organizations for the last 10 years and counting. So feel free to also reach to Capabuil's website. If you have an organization, whether it's a small, it's an SME or a big organization, public or private, you can mobilize your colleagues. I know training budgets are also tight, but Capabuil is flexible to even come and provide in-house trainings at your offices so that your professionals are up to date with technology, skills, and knowledge that will help them ride the storm of business environment. And lastly, we also have offers for group trainings. We are charging 49,000 shillings only for if your organization brings at least 5 people, each one will only pay 49K and attend a CPD program for 5 days at a venue of your choice. So that said, I want to end the session now, and everyone is at liberty to exit. I'll exit last, so feel free to exit. If there are any questions, you can just type on the chat section before you exit. I'll compile them and of course work on it together with ICT Authority or Capabuil where need be, and then we assist you. Have a nice evening, everyone, and God bless you.